Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and I have another review for you. Um, First out, I want to do a quick shout out. Um, I did a review recently from to Vault Comics. I Walk with Monsters, and one of my subscribers, he reached out to me, and I only have the first issue. I have not found the other issues in the series. Honestly, I don't even remember where I found this that particular book. It just ended up in my collection. I think I got it from one of my LCSs, but he reached out and loved my review. Actually said he didn't really like the series, but was curious on my review on it. So I found out he's gonna send me the next issues in the series, like 2, 3, 4, and 5, so I can read them and review them for you. But his name is Reichert Comics. Big shout out to Richter's Comics. I'll have the link down below. He is a very small channel and I mean, pretty cool guy. I mean, I just met him. I mean, already he's liking me and then showing my channel love. So I have a lot of things coming up for Reichert Comics. Big shout out, man. Okay, so my review today, get that out of the way, is Bloom #1 by Ted Sikora. Ted Sikora, I think so. Sikora, Ted Sikora, and Butch Mapa does the art. Now, I do know a little bit about Ted Sikora. He was recently in an interview with a bunch of different people. He's been on Spine Ticks, a show that I've been on, the panel on Saturdays. Link down below. Everybody I mentioned. He was recently on one of my good friends and a lot of our good friends, but Slim Comics and more. Mr. Sean, and I had a lot more one-on-one basis with Ted that night with Sean, and I got to hear a lot about this book. Now I picked this up day one, but it was really like a stack type of thing. I was just going like indie kind of crazy, and I saw #1 and a cool chick. Honestly, this is like my favorite cover, and they had like several different covers. Now this is from Hero Tomorrow Comics, and this was a Kickstarter that Ted had to do. I've heard the story I've heard the story about how he had to find the artist, and if I'm not mistaken, he's from Argentina. I think so, but I might be crazy. So, anyways, backstory on all that. Ted is really a great guy, and hearing his build-up of the comic and what it was about, I kind of, had a little bit notion of what the story was, because buying this in the beginning, I had no idea. I really bought it just because it felt like one of those, adult coloring book covers, and it is really good art. I want to say, like, he said that he wasn't like 100% fan of the art. It was just what he had to go with because it was a Kickstarter. The art is really, really good. I will say it does show some other pages, and I'll get to that, but it's not exactly the art I'd go for, but there are moments where the art connects with the book like amazingly. Now, first off, I would like to say that I am now a huge fan of this guy Ted. I don't care if he ever sees this or not, but I know he said something about he's done screenplays and script for like shows and stuff like that, and he has done other comic books, because if you didn't know, he also does, let's see, he does, and I don't want to, it's, dang it, where'd it go? I'll get there because it'll pop up, but he does, he has 2 other books. One, it was like a one-shot that came out, and it's called Punchline, and I'm drawing it's Punchline and something else, but we'll get there. So anyways, okay, Bloom, what it is about, honestly, it's creation, love, growth. It's kind of like the main theme. Well, in a nutshell, what it's really about, it's about this guy Ramsey, and it's the time frame is 1969. But just going to show you random art like I normally do as we go through, but that's Ramsey right here, and he's a mechanic. And incidentally, he's I wouldn't say struggling, but that's like a weird term to use, but he is kind of getting it. He wants to be a comic book creator and artist, um, and he's been trying to get this comic book started. He goes to this. He ends up like breaking down in front of this antique store. There ends up being a mannequin in the store, which they show on the first panel. He's drawn to the mannequin, buys it, takes it home, and he's has this art, but he's been wanting to paint on a girl for some reason. We know the reason. We'll get there, but he starts painting the art on the mannequin. At the time, Ramsey is engaged. We see his betrothed walked in, and she kind of questions the whole mannequin thing. There's comments back and forth. It goes like further on where they take a break and they go to this. It's like like street festival type thing. This is the '60s and different times and a lot of this is back and forth conversations. I will say that I mean, just reading this, you kind of gather that Ramsey is with the wrong girl, because I mean his fiance does not let him talk. She's not interested in what he has to say. She constantly puts him down. It was kind of interesting because we go back here and she's very interested in Ramsey with the mannequin, like in a jealous type of way, which is funny because it's a mannequin. But going out in public, she's a different type of woman where she just puts him down. And so anyways, Ramsey is instantly drawn to this page over here. But this is a, we would call performer, and there is a, something that is said right there that she is not a performer. She's just dancing. It's something she does for fun, and she's living in that moment. I will say that Ted does something amazing here, and you can tell that he's that this isn't his first writing gig, but he's very descriptive. A lot of times comics fail to do that. They paint the picture with the art and everything, and they just leave it at that, and the story is mainly conversations between the people. He does a really good job of painting the picture descriptively, like the author to the reader. Back to the story. So we're going through. He's watching the belly dancer, and he's really enthralled by her. And he kind of has the notation that he wants to take pictures of her and try and draw the same thing like the mannequin with her. He does get brave enough and talks to her, because he is just, she is beautiful and she's amazing as far as like the whole dancing and how it went down. So he is kind of nervous, but he does get up the guts and everything, and he gets her number and stuff. They kind of jut to this scene with Ramsey and his betrothed, and they're in the bed, and there's this whole like conversation about space and places in between space and graveyards and space. It's a great conversation, but I think it's a big like clue to these two characters here, that space between space. Reminds me of a song by Dave Matthews Band, The Space Between. Anywho, we kind of go through, and it just shows like some typical like different moments in Ramsey's like the weeks further up, and he has tried to get the woman, we're just going to call her the belly dancer for now, but he's been trying to get the belly dancer to do these photo shoots, and they are for his comic. He wants to, the idea in the comic book is she's going to be his villain of the comic book, and he's really bought on the idea of doing a female villain. We are talking about the '60s. I mean, even to this day, that it wasn't known of. He is here like waiting, and this currently takes place, the same week of Woodstock, and she was supposed to be going to Woodstock. You hear it on the background, stuff like that, like news reports, like, hey, don't go here, it's crazy over at Woodstock, all these people. But she ditches that anyways, and it's more along the lines because she had already canceled like 3 different times on him, and it was just time to get it done. She had agreed to do the photo shoot, and who knows. So they do. He takes her to this place, and he has like a certain location, because you know, he has a certain location. It's his photo shoot. You know how camera people are. I don't. But, so, you know, he's going to this location. He has like a tire that he wants her to wear to fit into this persona, you know, and so it's a nice back and forth conversation with both of them getting to know each other, and a lot of it is her messing with him, you know, as far as like, you know, freedomistic as far as their bodies and sexuality, and that goes and stuff like that. They do go back and forth, like as far as he's married, and that, you know, does she know that they're doing this? Would she have a problem with that? And he's like, you know, yeah and no, and you know, he kind of doesn't tell his wife, and you know, stuff like that. So they get here and they start doing like different poses, and kind of he's not really feeling it and everything. It's just not coming off right, you know. And a lot of it has to do with she hasn't been informed like the backstory of who she's supposed to be, or the motivation that the director would give their actor, like, you know, you're supposed to be glaring and you know those kind of things that an actress would need to perform, you know. So they kind of get more into the backstory and who the villainess is supposed to be, because he starts leading her to a different, he's not feeling the first spot that was picked out, so they kind of, you know, journey to the next spot, and they kind of get more into the backstory of who this character is supposed to be. She wants to know more about it, like, who am I supposed to be, you know, I'm the villain, female, okay, you know. So Ramsey kind of lays it down, and he tells her that, you know, one night he was having this dream, and it kind of like takes a break right there, and they do make it to the spot. And I mean, when I got to that, I was like, whoa, I mean, this panel right here, it was some really good art. I mean, this guy does really good, like, land. I mean, there's a bunch of times, like with her specifically, where you could tell the artist spent more time and more detail with the belly dancer. So they do get to the spot, and that's when, you know, in the middle of him telling the story about the dream about he had, and it says it was ancient times, and all nature's animals gathered together to hold a tournament, determining who would be king of the beast, and that was his dream. And so they do, and he mentions this previously in the book, but he goes really into detail here, and they show you, you know, it was like gorilla versus, you know, a bear, and eventually it says that the lion came out on top in the last battle, and it was a lion versus a polar bear. And as soon as the lion was going to grab whatever trophy or gift that was granted the winner, some anonymous, unknowingly, never seen before beast comes out of nowhere and kills the lion. Not only that, but rips him in half, and they show him there. And it's not supposed to be a beast that we know of, or it's supposed to be this mythical, like, nothingness of a beast type of thing. He goes into, like, when he had this dream, he kind of lays it down to her, like, man, by the way, I was kind of, like, tripping on LSD and maybe some acid and some other stuff, you know, so, So they do kind of, like, you know, art-wise, they go into, like, his whole trip, and he tells this story about how he literally tried to, like, draw this creature down because it was not only so cool, he loved the story and everything, but then all of a sudden, like, as he was trying to draw this creature that no one's ever seen, and guess what, he all of a sudden he couldn't draw it, but he was also seeing all these symbols, and it's the symbols that he wants to put on the girl. I will say that I can tell that there's a lot of involvement throughout the whole book, because I would like to pull out something on the marks. I know for a fact that Ted was the specific, you know, he designed all these marks, and I think in real life he actually did it on a mannequin, so he could get the marks close, you know, I mean, as real as possible with the comic. And like right here, they do show back at the beginning when he was in the garage of, like, the markings that he was putting on the mannequins. And they show 3 panels, and I'm big on Easter eggs, and I look at details and stuff like that. So I remember seeing this 3rd panel, and I was all like, and they show it right here, because over here they show 2, and that's the front and back of her. And then I was like looking right here, and they show this 3rd panel. I was like, well, where does the 3rd panel go? You know, we got front and backs. You know, okay, so back to where I was. You know, they do show where the other panels go, and it's basically like her arms, and we're gonna get there. But they basically, as going through the story, they you know, tattoo this girl up, but they don't tattoo, but you know, they beauty mark her up with the specific designs and stuff. And he kind of goes through the story, and he tells her that he got all those symbols and signs from the dream, and that, you know, his whole life and everything, like, since then has been leading up to this, like him getting the mannequin and doing the marks at home, and you know, stuff like that. And it was all kind of meant to be, even meeting her and them getting here. Now, I mentioned the story was about creation, and for me, it's creation in a lot of ways. For me, it reminded me of my YouTube journey here with y'all, you know, like creating this channel and creating this content for y'all to watch. In his respect, he's a he's a mechanic that wants to be a comic book creator, and he's trying to create this person, this comic, this villain. You know, there's a lot, but the love that goes into it. Not only does Ted and Butch and the writers and the art that's involved, but the character for the character within the book. You know. And this is Ted's other books. This is what I was looking for before. This is Tap Dance Killer, Volume 1, which I was not aware of, and I'm looking for that one currently. And this is one recently they came out right around the time Bloom did. It was a Punchline Vaudevillains, and I made the mistake of selling both Bloom and Punchline, so I'm trying to track down Punchline, and I've already tracked down Bloom. So let's see. They keep going, and they're to the point where she needs to do her face, and he hasn't really set on a face. He's been drawing like this hero. I think this is the hero right here, and I hope and I know Ted on some level has some of his real art in this book. I know he did one of the covers. I would love to get that cover because I want him signed one day, you know, signed by Ted. But he kind of lets her do her own face mask thing, and she does this thing where she does, I thought it was going to be like the cover, but maybe that's the beginning part of it, and we'll get there too. But she does this little, like, you know, kind of crack here on her eye with like mascara or whatever, and it's said to be like the anti-version of the hero or whatever, you know, on the hero's design. They kind of, you know, she does a whole costume change, because you'll realize right here, and it's more matching of the cover. But you know, she starts getting more into the vibe of the character. Like, now maybe the character is taking over, you know, the actress side of it, and they just they get into it, and they're just snapping photos and clickety clickety clack clack snap snap snap, and she kind of takes off, and she is like super into it, and she's still dancing and chanting, "Come on, follow me down here," and they find this like cabin in the middle of the woods that I mean, he has scouted this place, and evidently he didn't see this before, and they go in there, and it's kind of where the book gets a little more creepy, and I will say a nice part of it, but there is a little slight nudity in it, which I wasn't expecting at all, which was a very nice touch, and it's not gratuitous or anything. It goes within the whole art thing. But we get in here in the cabin, and she's butt naked, and she wants the rest of the art that he had planned to be on her now. And she's like, come on, don't be a square, you know, it's just art, baby, you know. And without being too detailed, but yeah, basically right here, you know, she gets all the art on her, and we see that Ramsey and her name is Lilith. That is the name that she chose, because if you don't know, Lilith was supposed to be the first woman in some histories. We're not going to go into that. But for a first read, this was amazing. It was great on so many levels. There's so many thoughts, especially getting to the last part of the book. It doesn't really have a dark vibe, the whole book. It's a very nice, pleasant story, like I mentioned, creation, love, growth, those kind of things, and then it gets to the end, and it's just got me thinking, I have not read issue 2. It will get its own specific review, and if y'all haven't noticed, I do these with the books that I genuinely believe need to be, their own specific reviews. But that is my review. It was great. The art was fantastic. The story was phenomenal. Ted and Butch, y'all did an amazing job. If I'm not mistaken, I think Butch is not, or he might not be attached with the project anymore. I'm not positive. I do know that issue number 3, I think, drops in September. So if you have not picked up 1 and 2, you have some time to do so. Check out his, Ted Sikora on Instagram. I mean, he's a very humble, and he's very community-wise. I mean, he is a comic book person himself, comic book fan, I guess you could say. I mean, he is doing comics, but he collects and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, that's my review on Bloom #1. I got one more review coming, I think, and then it's going to be new comic day video, and then I'm going to leave y'all alone. I love everybody. Like, comment, share, subscribe. I will see y'all in a little bit. Evil out.